This is our second Art of Feminine video, and today we are going to be discussing 5 indicators of healthy relationships. And this is in conjunction with a series of events that we will be holding in 2022, including a conference, in-person conference in February 2022, as well as a retreat for our ladies where we shall analyze toxic and unhealthy relationships, including abusive relationships, with an intent of assisting our ladies to identify hallmarks and key traits of healthy relationships in order to assist them with all of their relationships, including romantic relationships, family relationships, and work relationships, in order to enhance their lives. So I would encourage our ladies who are interested in these events to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to also sign up for our newsletter on our website, and to indicate to us that you wish to be informed of our events on many topical themes affecting women at all stages of their life. Why healthy relationships? Well, what we've decided to do is to juxtapose healthy relationships with unhealthy relationships so that our ladies can see the very distinct differences between the traits of a healthy relationship and healthy communication versus very unhealthy and toxic relationships. And that is also because an unhealthy relationship has numerous consequences, from it being exceptionally unhealthy physically, mentally, emotionally, very draining, and it can even have very important legal consequences if it inevitably leads to a divorce or some sort of recourse in the courts, including domestic violence or children's courts. And our physical event in February 2022, we shall be joined by leading professionals who do deal with legal recourses for very unhealthy relationships, and they shall share some of their stories in terms of just how bad things can get. So in order for us to try to assist our ladies, we shall be also running series on healthy relationships in order to assist our ladies to better their own relationships in the various spheres of their lives. And from the outset, just to ground the talk biblically as well, I'll introduce 1 Corinthians 13, and Paul talks about the greatest gift. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burnt, but have not love, it profits me nothing. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. And at the outset, I wish to emphasize that unhealthy and toxic relationships generally have their genesis in a childhood. And we shall be discussing the different attachment styles that people develop, as well as a unique attachment style that we see in litigation practice for those in highly toxic relationships, called a trauma bond. And what that essentially means is that what we find as litigators and mediators and those dealing with people in their domestic setting is that if you are in an abusive or toxic relationship, the two people develop what we call a trauma bond. In other words, the very trauma of the abuse bonds you. And that is why we see women in particular, and men, who indicate that they feel like they can't get away from their abuser. We talk about toxic cyclical relationships, on again, off again, on again, off again, with the same two people kind of eating away at each other, and with their loved ones and their friends thinking they cannot understand why these two people keep going back to each other when it is clearly and evidently a highly unhealthy and dangerous situation to be in. And we shall develop that. But today we talk about healthy relationships. What are the 5 hallmarks of healthy relationships? And this will be expanded in 2022. So the first hallmark is communication. And what that means is communication with one another in such a way that both parties feel safe, emotionally, physically, and psychologically safe. And what that means as well, and what we often see particularly in litigation, is that sacred space that a man and a woman in particular share, where they become particularly vulnerable with one another in the sense of sharing information, where they are vulnerable. It's information that is sensitive, and it takes a risk on their part to share that information with any other human being. That is a sacred space, and it cannot be used to punish the person, to abuse the person. And so that is why communication needs to be done safely. The person, both parties need to be able to feel that when they are sharing something, it will not be used against them. It will not be held against them in perpetuity. It won't be brought up in order to punish the person. That is what we talk about in terms of communication, where both parties feel safe. The other aspect of healthy communication is that the parties feel heard and they feel seen. And next year we shall be getting into how men and women are different in the sense of how they handle communication, so that women can understand, for example, why a man pulls away, why a man sometimes needs space after communicating particularly deeply emotional things, so that it's a situation where women and men understand each other and how they are hardwired in order for them to both feel in their relationships that they are both heard and they are both seen. And by enhancing that communication, it inevitably leads to greater intimacy between two parties. And that's not necessarily just constrained to a romantic relationship. It's the same with a friendship or any kind of relationship built on healthy communication, where you both have that safe space where you know that you can trust each other to be able to share things that might be embarrassing, things that might be very difficult, but you know that the person who's receiving it is going to hold it dearly and not hurt you with it. The second hallmark, which is closely connected, is trust. And a trust once broken is very difficult to restore, and as they say, trust is earned. And trust entails a myriad of different components. It includes freedom and space, and what that means is that especially when parties are taking time out to think about things or to contemplate things, that you both provide each other with enough space to come to the decisions that need to be made in a healthy way without impinging on someone's freedom. And what happens particularly with women is that sometimes when a man goes silent or they withdraw slightly, particularly after being emotionally connected to a woman, is that the woman doesn't understand and they try to draw closer to the man. And sometimes that can lead to very unhealthy consequences, and we shall discuss that next year. But what trust also entails is honesty. It's honesty. And particularly with our ladies where they've gone through a divorce or they've gone through a second or third marriage, it's very difficult sometimes to be vulnerable enough to be honest with a man in the sense of being who they really are. And yet the honesty is tied in with trust, and the trust is tied in with communication. And once you open yourself up to the possibility once again of being yourself in an honest and authentic way, it's quite interesting to see how that can really enhance prospects of deeper relationships. And what that also means is an acceptance of who you are, an acceptance of who the other person is. The third hallmark is how parties handle conflict. And there inevitably will be conflict. I remember once one of the world's best negotiators, a gentleman who was involved in negotiating huge business contracts and also negotiating with terrorists, and he was a famed negotiator. He used to negotiate treaties, and he had this profound gift of persuasion. And he always used to say to me, without conflict there is death. Things don't progress without conflict. So if there's no conflict at all, that's very unhealthy. Conflict is healthy. It's how you handle it that becomes very important. And once again, I would encourage our ladies to think about communication and trust in terms of how you handle that conflict, so that the conflict does not become personalized. You don't bear grudges. John Bevere wrote a very interesting book called The Bait of Satan, and he talks about people who take offense, who are very thin-skinned, and how unhealthy that is in terms of becoming a fostering tool for real bitterness and unforgiveness in your life. The fourth hallmark is being interdependent and not codependent. And what that essentially means, once again, is that you are not relying on someone else to make you happy. So you are interdependent in the sense that you maintain your sense of identity and your independence, but you come together in such a way that you both feed each other, whether it's a friendship or a romance or a business relationship. You are giving of yourself in such a way that you are actually cultivating a relationship together rather than just depleting one another. And the fifth hallmark, and possibly the most important one, is respect. I cannot emphasize enough how important respect is for healthy relationships. And we shall see next week what happens when respect is corroded. And some experts believe that it is simply impossible to restore any kind of relationship once there is no more respect. It's pretty much a death knell for any relationship. What is respect? Respect means looking at the person in the best possible light, including giving them the benefit of the doubt, even when they have hurt you. It also includes setting boundaries. It's being brave enough to say, this is what I want from a relationship, and I shall respectfully communicate what my boundaries are. And with that, it also includes standards. And that is a very attractive quality to have for a woman, our boundaries and standards, is to say, this is who I am. I value myself, and I value the person in my life. And that is why I am setting in boundaries and standards, that this is what I expect in terms of being treated, and I shall treat you the same. And if you don't treat me how I expect to be treated, it means that you have walking power. You are prepared to leave that relationship or situation and not hang on and feed an abusive or toxic situation. So that's the end of this video. I hope that our ladies found it helpful, and I would encourage our ladies to please follow our YouTube, follow our Instagram, where you can get more information, not only from myself, but other experts in relationship fields, in order to become a better version of yourself. Thank you.